Hey guys, Sabri Subi here, and welcome to this module of quantum growth called the Larger Market Formula. And in this module, I'm going to be really showing you how we break down any given market and where the buyers are hiding in any given market. And really, it's a paradigm shift from, say for instance, if you are having a conversation with a small group of people in a room and you had to pay to have those people attend that meeting in a room where you're going to be talking to them. And using the same amount of money that it would cost to get those people in the room, but instead of having a conversation to, 1, 2, 3, or 4 people, you would actually be in a sports arena in front of 90,000 people for the exact same amount of money with all of your marketing dollars that you invest. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do in today's module. Before we get into all the weeds and the exact specifics of it, let me show you what we'll be covering. So we'll be going over the gate of Xerxes, the larger market formula in granular detail, market sophistication, and terrorizing the competition. So the gates of Xerxes, as I refer to it, is really the convergence and the barrier of people moving from offline to online and how people are actually buying in the 21st century. So as I stated before, e-commerce is exploding right now, and it is completely eating traditional physical brick and mortar spending, right? Well, let's take a look at the actual figures, first in the US, then globally. Now, if you look at the US spending, it's now at around $450 billion per year. But if you zoom out and look at retail spending, it's clear to see that e-commerce only still represents around 10% of US retail spending. Now, if you add in bars and restaurants, which are only now starting to get addressed from technology, it gets even smaller, right? Then it's interesting to look into the retail spending to see what it actually looks like. And you can see that gas stations are going to be completely transformed and likely to disappear over the next 20 years. Then there's car parts and maintenance and all that is kind of going away or completely getting transformed and relocated in the next 10 years as well, which is largely due to this company, Tesla. But then there's also the rest of US retail spending, which is now over $10 trillion. Then if you zoom out and actually look at the share of this and what we've taken so far of the opportunity, you can see that it's much smaller, right? When you put in the all kind of spending, it's only 4%. Now, if you zoom out again and look at the global e-commerce market, what you can see here is you've got USA, you've got Western Europe, you've got China, and all other. And you look at the total amount of spending in terms of how that marketplace is just made up and what that looks like and the growth of it, from 2005 to 2016, look at China, right? And it's crazy to see what's going on. And then this stat that I showed you in an earlier module, which is really if you zoom out and look at USA in the total e-commerce share of retail spending, you can see again that they're only small numbers, right? Now, even though the e-commerce penetration is still only just at 10%, we have a fundamental shift in where the attention is and where it's going and what we can do with that. So you might be thinking, why are you talking about e-commerce and all of these stats, Sabri? We're talking about consulting and we're talking about coaching and service-based businesses and attracting leads. And, I'm not selling widgets online, and I get that. But it's very important to zoom out and look at those macro trends and how they are affecting how people are buying, because I'm about to go into how that's going to affect you with actually selling a service and generating leads. Because the most important thing to do is to look where the attention is flowing, right? Because at the end of the day, business is all first about getting attention from the people that have the problem that you can help them solve. And then once you've got their attention, is then using that attention to basically persuade them that you are the company that they want to do business with, and then delivering on that persuasion element and actually helping them solve that problem, right? So it's very important to look at these trends and understand where people are going and what's happening as a society that, we're operating and conducting our business with. And, as we went over, like the internet now is the number one channel in terms of advertising and getting new customers out of all the other channels. And consumers are online an average of 6 hours and 42 minutes each and every day, which really begs the question that I often think about is, if everyone is online, then what is it that they're doing? Right? You've got all these people online spending like almost 7 hours a day online. And if we have a look at these stats, let's have a look. These are the key direct-to-consumer stats. So 87% of shoppers now begin product searches online. People spend on average 5 hours per week shopping online. And 0.56 or 56 cents of every dollar spent in an offline store is influenced by a digital interaction. And even though this is e-commerce, I'm going to be going into the lead gen stats in a moment. Just think about that. 56 cents of every dollar that is spent in an offline store is influenced by a digital interaction. And that is just showing that that's what's happening. There's all these eyeballs online and they are really influencing that total commerce worldwide and what's happening. And even though those transactions aren't taking place online, 56 cents of every dollar spent in offline store is influenced by an online interaction, which shows exactly how important this stuff is. So really what we're seeing is that they're researching online and then they're buying offline. And this is also changing to they're researching online, trying offline, and then they're buying online. So they go research online, try offline, and buy online, right? And that's typically what you're seeing in terms of like showrooming and all these things that's happening. However, this is really still only represents a fraction of the opportunity. And this is indicative of what we see with conversion rates for e-commerce stores, right? Because the average e-commerce conversion rate globally across all industries, all websites and everything is 2.86%, right? So literally you get 100 people coming to a website and less than 3% of those people are buying anything. Right? Now, let's move away from the direct-to-consumer and e-commerce side of stuff and start to look at the B2B. Now, today's B2B buyer makes an average of 12 searches online and looks for the same digital experience that they encounter during the B2C sales cycle. And that's the reason that I show you these stats, because, everyone's buying things online, right? And everybody has bought something online. And we typically interact with like B2C transactions and buying things direct to consumer and business to consumer in a much more frequent basis than we do than when we buy off businesses typically, right? And what's happening is because we are exposed to that more often, then we're starting to really expect that same experience when we're buying in a B2B environment, right? So this is radically changing the way that business is made up when you're selling to another business even, because they're expecting that same experience and transparency and being able to see all of the stuff that they would see in a direct-to-consumer play in a B2B play. And B2B buyers are already 57% of the way through the buying process before the first meeting with a representative. So before they even pick up the phone and call you or call and speak to your salesperson, 57%. They're already 57% of the way through their buying process, meaning that they've gone out there and collated information. They've already been comparing companies before you've even had the opportunity to speak to them. And that's a really, really clear and key distinction to make. And that's really evident by the stat above about, B2B buyers expecting the same experience that they encounter with a B2C company. because they're already using information online in that same way, where they're almost 60% their decision is made before they're even speaking to you, which is radically different to how it's been done in the past, right? Now, over 73% of B2B technology buyers are 20 to 35 years old, making them the single largest demographic, right? A lot of people talking about like, oh, it's always the older people. The older people are the ones that are making all of these big buying decisions and have all the big money to spend, and they're the guys that we want to attack. Well, 73% of all B2B technology buyers are 20 to 35, right? So that's going to change dramatically how you communicate to those people. And, these people typically, we're at the fringe of growing up in the internet age and are definitely going to be wanting an experience that is more seamless and more is like a B2C play than it is a B2B play. So what about lead generation? Well, on average, right, the average lead generation website worldwide converts at 4.31%. So again, right, you have 100 people coming to your website or your landing pages, and less than 5% of those people are ever converting. So 95% of the people, they're walking out of the room. They're leaving your website, and that's it. Poof, they're gone. You'll never ever hear from them again. You don't have them as a lead, right? So if 87% of purchases start online, but less than 3 to 4% of them convert online, what is it that people are looking for? Like, if someone is on Google and they're specifically searching for something, and then you're getting 100 of those people that are specifically searching for something, or they're coming from Facebook or wherever it is, and they're coming through to your website or your landing page, right, looking for what it is that you do, but only 3 to 4% of them ever convert online, then what is going on? Like, what is it that these people are looking for? And the answer is information. For the longest time, the salesperson was the gatekeeper of information, and the buyer would basically meet with as many different sales reps and salespeople during that information gathering phase, right, to collate all the information. And like, salespeople would really not tell you anything until you got on the phone with them, and all the information would be held very close to their chest. And in order to find out any information about that business, you would have to call their sales rep. And that has fundamentally changed, right? You can see it from these stats, is that people no longer want that to be the case. Like, they're 57% of the way through that buying process before they even reach out to you. And that's because we're living in this instant age where we expect that businesses, regardless of whether or not they're selling a service or they're selling to a business, to have enough information out in the public domain that you can collate that and go through it in your own time without having to speak with a sales rep, which is very threatening, and it's not convenient to that end user to find out exactly what is going on. So there's been that shift, right? I see salespeople that are still operating like it was 10, 20 years ago. Like the old advice of like, when you call a prospect, never leave a voicemail. Like, that's the most stupid and dishonest thing ever. And the reason that they say that is because then they're going to know that you're a salesperson, and then they're not going to call you back, right? And it's just a ridiculous situation to put somebody in. And it's dishonest, and the internet has disrupted that, and it's changing that. It's like, okay, if you don't have enough information on your website for me, then you're not going to even be put into the pool of potential people that I'm going to do business with, because it's inconvenient for me, and I already want to be almost 60% of the way through my information and buying process before I even have to speak to you. There might be some questions that I want you to have to answer. There might be some things that are not clear. I want some comparisons, but by and large, I've 60% made my decision before I even speak to you. Now, as fascinating as that is, there's something that is way more important at play here. Because if everyone is searching for information, and everyone's online, they're searching on Google, they're looking for information, then why is everybody just trying to sell them? Like, it really just doesn't make any sense at all. And if your offers are just screaming buy, 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 and they're not valuable and they're not educational in nature, then you are missing out on just a huge potential of your total market. 97%, right? If we look at the average conversion rates. So you're missing out on 97% of the total number of buyers in your market because you're leading with a buy message, right? And you're withholding the information in order for your sales team to be able to get on the phone and then try to close them, or for you to get on the phone and try to close them. Which brings us to the larger market formula. And really what the larger market formula shows is that in any given market, only 3% of your prospects are looking to buy right now. And these are the guys that are intensely interested in solving a problem or fulfilling a desire that they have right now. They have the most urgent problem that they have to get solved, all right? And these are people who are trying to decide whether or not to buy from you or one of your competitors. And if you're like most business people, right, and most coaches and consultants and service-based businesses that I see, this is where all of your attention is going, okay? And you're just obsessively focusing on this. And this is like where the waters are the most bloody with competition because everybody is going for these people. Then you have 17%, and these 17% of prospects are what we call, they're in information gathering mode. And these are like window shoppers who may not be looking to buy right now, but they're open to it, right? They're out there gathering information because it's on their mind to some degree. Then there's a further 20% of the market who are problem aware, like they understand that they've got a problem, meaning that they know that they need a new car, for instance, or that they know that they need to lose weight, but they aren't actively out there researching and on car yards on the weekend or researching weight loss books or anything stuff like that. So they're not looking to buy. And then finally, there's another 60% of the market who aren't problem aware or they are not looking to buy. And as I said, like most businesses direct all of their marketing efforts and attention on just that 3% that is looking to buy right now. And they largely compete on price and are really out there screaming like, we have got the best range and we have got the cheapest prices, or we are the best company, come and buy our stuff. Right? We've been in business for 17 years. You should really come and just buy from us. But the other part of the market is like 3,100% larger. And there's no additional cost to focus your marketing dollars on that market that's 3,000% larger. So there's a huge opportunity in reaching that 97% of the people that are outside of just that top part of the pyramid that are looking to buy right now. And believe it or not, even disinterested prospects can turn into lucrative customers if you know how to approach them. So these guys that are in the 60%, these can be some of your most lucrative buyers if you know the approach and if you know how to take somebody that is not problem aware and move them up the pyramid to when they're ready to buy right now. And the problem is that most people treat every lead that comes into their business like that 3% that are actually ready to buy. And if you look at most people's websites, they're all about like the products and services that they have or their team, and like with a big call to action of either buy now, get in touch, speak with our team. And they're all swimming against the raging river of mass desires of their market. And it makes no sense. We know the mass market desire is information because the statistics show us, right? And instead of what you want to do of doing with that, instead of going out there and just literally screaming offers to people and asking them to speak with your sales team straight out of the gate, what you want to do is you want to lead with valuable and education-based content because, look, as consultants and coaches and service providers of any type, our job is generally centered around getting people on the telephone in order to speak with that prospect and then convert them into clients. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have engineered and architected a situation that maximizes that and stacks the deck in our favor. And if we're trying to sell them straight out of the gate, we're ignoring the majority of our market. It's as simple as that. In fact, now, the crazy thing is that if you look at how the online environment works, right? You have a look. The average bounce rate for a website worldwide, which is simply the amount of people that come to that site and then don't go past the first page, it's measured at 47% worldwide. And look, some are a little higher, some are a little lower, but on average, it's 47% based on a Google Analytics benchmark report. And those guys have a lot of data. That means that the other 50% of people who stay around on your site, and they're the guys that are kind of reading about your company. They're the guys that we call that are actively interested in your products and services. Like, there's enough on there for them to have a little bit of a read through and see what's going on. But as we covered earlier, the average conversion rate of a website is 3%. That's 3% of the 50% who hung around, at your site and your product. So it's pretty obvious that the big opportunity is really in focusing on that 50%, right? And where the money is being left on the table, so to speak, which is really getting more of those people who are actively interested in your products and services to buy. But how do we do that? Well, let's take it a step further and really break down those segments of the market. And let me run you through this model called the market sophistication and competition continuum. So what we can see is that we have a hot market, right? Now, a hot market is pretty self-explanatory. It's those people that are really looking to buy right now. And it doesn't take a lot of skill really to convince those people to do business with you, right? They're like, I'm really thirsty. And you're like, I've got this ice cold glass of water. Would you like it? They're like, yep, awesome. Let me take that off you. And then you've got the warm market, and the warm market, they're the people that kind of sit in the middle of the pyramid, and they're like in information gathering mode. So they're not looking to buy right now, but they're certainly open to it. Otherwise they wouldn't be out there getting, collecting all the information. And then you've got the cold market, which is really that last segment of the pyramid, and it's that whole bottom wedge that really basically makes up the largest opportunity, because there's this, just by the sheer amount of prospects that there are in that cold, unaware market, this is really what shows you the largest opportunity to scale. And it's what we call the blue ocean, because it's uncontested waters. Like, people, they don't ever go after that cold market because it's very challenging to be able to, and it takes a lot of skill to be able to get somebody from being completely unaware to then moving them all the way up the pyramid to ready to buy right now. And these people are unconsciously aware, unconsciously unaware. They don't even know, right, that they have a problem. And then, there's a small segment of just on the edge of it that are starting to get consciously aware, right? And there's a very, very on the fringe. It's only a very, very slither. But this is definitely, you look at all businesses that have really scaled up to big numbers, and it's really their ability to be able to address that uncontested blue ocean and cold traffic market and really be skilled enough to have a funnel in place that takes somebody from being like a completely disengaged wanderer, not knowing that they have a problem, and then moving them all the way to the point where they're looking to actually buy what it is that you've got on offer. Then we've got the next part, which is really the orange ocean. And these are really the sliver of the market that is in information gathering mode. And it's like becoming increasingly competitive as there is more noise online. And as more businesses move from offline marketing into online marketing, which we've obviously already seen, but there's still more and more businesses flooding online every year, it's becoming increasingly competitive. And the ability to be able to scale in this market is very limited, and it's because you have to beg for attention, right? It's like whoever can scream the loudest and have the most hype, and that they're the people that really get the biggest share of that market. But because it still only represents a small percentage of the market, the opportunity to scale based on that is limited, right? And then the last one is what we call the red ocean. And the waters are just bloody with competition. There's blood all over the walls. Everybody is just competing on price, and there's really stagnant growth in this market. Like, you cannot scale a business purely only focusing on that very small subset of the market that's looking to buy right now, and your profits are very, very small because all you're doing is really, competing on features and services and really the price at the end of the day, and it's a small market. And so then we look at kind of what happens and how do you really communicate to these people in this market, and how do you convert those people from being unconsciously unaware to buying right now. Now, in the red ocean side of things, in this small buyers market, really you're just telling them about your product and service and price. And this is largely how people are doing it, right? They're just talking about their product, service and price, telling everyone how good they are. And that's enough to get away with for those people that are already convinced that it is they want what it is that you have got on offer. They're just deciding who that they want to go with. And then really on like the orange ocean and the people that are the area that's becoming increasingly competitive for these people that are out there just kind of in information gathering mode, the way that you sell these people is using claims and proof, right? Because they're already out there trying to say like, okay, I'm just collecting the information to help me solve this problem. And then you just need to claim that you can help them solve that problem and then prove it in your marketing, right? And then the last one for the blue ocean, which is the uncontested waters, the way that you convert these people is you need really to use an explanation and storytelling, and you need to become a master of storytelling. And it takes a lot more effort in order to be able to become really effective at those things, to be able to convert those people, right? So because they are completely unaware that they have a problem, you have to really tell them a story and show them somebody that wasn't aware that they had a problem, and then show them the transformation that they made and explain to them and show them exactly and educate those people of exactly how much better that their life could be if they got this problem solved that they didn't even know that they had, okay? And if we just look at the size of the opportunity, this is what it looks like. The blue ocean is the biggest segment of that market. And as you move down to the orange ocean, it becomes increasingly smaller. And then by the time you get down to the red ocean, it's very, very minuscule. And you're basically fighting for the scraps of that market. So that's basically, if you look at, all the way from the very, very beginning, these people have no sense of pain. Then as we move them into the orange ocean, they're starting to feel the pain, okay? And then we move them from the information gathering mode, then from the information gathering mode to basically the buying mode, they're seeking solutions now to solve that pain. And then when you get all the way down into the buying now, they are sold that your solution solves their pain. They just want to know if you are the best person in order for them to buy off. And this is really, it's a really important thing to look at. And most people don't understand. They think that they can just go out there and continually scale their business, and it's going to be as profitable as it was when they were just going on that red ocean, and it's going to be as easy where they can spend a little bit of money, get a few little leads, and then convert those leads at the same ease, right? So profit's not the right word. It's more so the effort of closing a buying now lead is so much smaller, and it's so much easier to do than to close somebody that is in completely the unconsciously unaware stage. However, the opportunity to do so is just infinitely more exciting, and that's really what you need to start to think about. There's a certain cap at all of these different ascension points. Like, there's a cap on how big you can grow your business, focusing completely on the people that are looking to buy now. And then there's another barrier and a cap to how fast and how big you can grow your business based on the people that are operating in that orange ocean. And then really with the blue ocean, typically what you find that it's almost uncapped, that there is almost an endless supply of new prospects that are entering into that part of the market every single month, every single week, every single day, right? And that's really where you need to become a master in if you're trying to scale to 8 figures and beyond. That's the area that you need to become a master in. And I'm going to show you exactly how to be doing that in this program. Now, as I mentioned before, for the longest time, the sales representative was the gatekeeper of information, and the buyer would meet with as many salespeople as possible during that information gathering phase. And companies really just relied heavily on really great sales reps to bring home the sale through charm and charisma and skill. But now B2B buyers are already 57% of the way through their buying process before they reach out to a company. Okay, so does that mean that salespeople aren't important? Definitely not. I believe that salespeople are among the most important people in your whole organization because nothing happens until something is sold. And they even become almost more important because 92% of all customer interactions now happen over the phone. So all it means is that the first step is to provide valuable content up front and then ask for the lead to ultimately get the prospect on the phone. And it's really that sequence of events that's important because according to Google, 71% of buyers start with a generic query, meaning that they are looking for a solution to their problems, not your product name or not your company, right? They're just starting with something super generic. So that's what we want to give them. We want to give them information because that's what they're looking for. And that information that we want to give them is the information that answers their most pressing hair on fire problem that they're looking for a solution for. Because we know that they're looking for a solution to their problem, but they're really just starting, on Google, for instance, with a very, very generic query. So how do we know what it is that they are looking for? Like, what is it? They're starting with a generic query. Well, the way that we do that is by looking at all the data that you have already collected, right? And you should be reading through that and analyzing it. And that's the reason that I showed you exactly my process of how to go out there and really camp out in the mind of your dream buyer and find out exactly the questions that they have. What are their hopes and dreams, their pains and fears, their barriers and uncertainties? What is it that's keeping them up at night, unable to sleep in order for them they have to find an answer to this problem that they're experiencing, right? And the reason, you should probably start to see that that's so important is because, then we know exactly what they want. And then we can just give them exactly what it is that they want. And therefore, our conversion rates are going to go up through the roof. And the amount of leads that we get is going to go through the roof. And the amount of sales that we get is also going to go through the roof because we've gone out there and we're able to actually speak to them in the language that they're using, and we're able to tell them that we've got the solution to the exact problems that they are experiencing. And we are not trying to sell them straight out the gate. We're trying to help them answer those questions and give them exactly what they want, which is information. So you might be thinking, well, how do I give them that information? Like, what does it look like? Well, we use something that I call a high value content offer. And basically what we do is we put together a high value content offer. And, a high value content offer is essentially a piece of information that is of high value. So a free report, PDF, video trainings, a webinar, cheat sheets, and swipe files. It's basically like an ethical bribe that you offer people in exchange for their email address. And the best type of high value content offer, in my opinion, is just a down and dirty free report or a PDF, because there's very little commitment for the end user, and it's very clear on what it is that they're getting. There's like a mental picture that they can wrap their brain around, and it solves an immediate need, and it also gives them instant gratification. They can get it and they can just read it very quickly and away they go. And all of that right? On top of that, you're also able to build your list as aggressively as possible. And what do I mean by that? I mean your list of prospects who are raising their hand in a sea of people and saying like, yo, I'm interested in what it is that you've got. Like, you're not going to be downloading a free report on how to reduce, your repayments on your mortgage unless you were in the market for that. And I've never seen anything that allows you to build your list of prospects as aggressively as a free report, as the cost per lead for free reports is always the lowest. Like, you can't beat the cost per lead on one of these things. Now, you've probably heard of these before, or some people refer to them as lead magnets or white papers or whatever you want to call them, right? The reality is that these things have been around for more than 100 years. And a lot of people have tried them, and very, very few people can ever get them to work. And that's because they have no idea on how to effectively craft one that is completely irresistible for their dream buyer. And then they don't know what to do once they've actually captured that prospect's details, right? You don't just get them a free report and then they just, start banging down your door, waving their credit card, being like, I'm ready to buy some shit. That's not how it works, right? And I'm going to be walking you through in forensic detail of exactly how to craft the most killer high value content offer that really just sucks in leads like a vacuum cleaner on steroids in the next module. And I have spent, tens of millions of dollars advertising high value content offers in more than 416 different niches and markets. And I've split tested these things to the high heavens. And I'm going to be showing you everything that I know and all the scars that I have collected from the years and finding out all the little tweaks of what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to be covering that in the coming modules. For now, I want to talk about terrorizing the competition. Now, let me tell you why this strategy is so brutally effective and how it completely allows you to just terrorize your competition and really leave them in a state of complete oppression where they are down on their knees pleading for mercy, right? And I know that's strong language, but this is a really, really ninja strategy. And I want to show you how I've used this single-handedly to enter into hyper-competitive markets, right? Where the waters were bloody with competition and just dismantle much larger competitors that were just much more established and really build the number one fastest growing business in my industry and the 28th fastest growing company in the whole of the country, ranked by the Australian Financial Review. You see, all of your competitors are trying to sell those people straight out the gate on their websites, i.e. get in touch, contact my team, get a free quote, get an express quote, speak with our sales team. And they are just ignoring the 97% of the market. And you can just come in by night and literally start addressing the majority of the total buyers in that market that everybody else is ignoring. And this really allows you to start up a dialogue. And what's really important about starting up that dialogue is it allows you to set the buying criteria. This is seriously profound and powerful. Probably one of the most powerful things that I've ever come across. And it is like a stealth strategy where your competitors will really have no idea what you're up to until it's too late. And you just come in by night and you take all the customers. And they wake up and they're like, well, where the hell did that dude come from? Like, I've been operating this business for 10 years and they just came in and all of a sudden now, like, they're just everywhere. They keep on coming up in all of our sales phone calls. Like, everyone's talking about these people. Like, what the hell is going on here? And they have no idea what's going on, right? And the reason is because you're the one who has their name and email address of the prospects and their competitors don't. So then you can start to nurture this audience and actually set the buying criteria, right? So as we looked before at the market sophistication and competition continuum, like everyone's only addressing that red ocean and no one is addressing this other 97% of the market. And because we come in and we address them, then we can start to dictate what the buying criteria is of that whole marketplace, because we're the only one that has their name and email address. We're the only people that are communicating with these people. No one else is, because no one else is focusing on them. And, we can tell them about what's important and what's not. We can tell them about what to look out for. We can show them where the value is in a solution to help them solve this problem. And we can really tell them what they should be doing to solve that problem. And then you become the educator, right? You become that educator that is providing valuable information. And this establishes you as the number one authority in your marketplace. And the people that your prospects look up to and they trust as this person that's got their best interest at heart, because they know nothing else about any of your competitors, because they're all just competing in those blood-drenched waters of the market that is looking to buy right now. And they're alongside hundreds and hundreds of other lazy competitors who are all fighting each other like rats in a maze for this small piece of cheese. And they're screaming offers to these prospects like get a quote, right? Or offering them some threatening call to action from a salesperson where they can't even find out anything more without getting an express quote or a free consultation, or without speaking to a sales rep, which is, whether you like it or not, is a threatening thing. It's a lot more threatening than just downloading a free report that includes a lot of information that's going to help that person. And you're here building trust and a relationship with that huge segment of the market that is infinitely bigger, and then providing value before you're ever asking for anything, right? And you're moving them closer to a decision, and you're building goodwill, which no one else in your marketplace is doing. And this is seriously one of the most powerful insights, because it allows you to set the buying criteria of your market, which is the criteria that a transaction takes place. And essentially, you're controlling the flow of information and then telling them what they should value and what is important. And by the time that you move people down to that buying now stage, right, you're the only one that they will listen to. Because skepticism in today's day and age is just rampant, right? I don't believe that there's ever been a harder time in history to get people to buy from you the first time. And I'm sure that once you've done the Halo strategy in your market, you will see this firsthand. Like, people are freaking terrified to make the wrong decision of being ripped off. Like, you will see that same research coming up when you do the Halo strategy in your market. That's just people's number one concern, is that they're going to make the wrong decision and they're going to get ripped off. And there are gurus in every corner of the internet promising your prospects a solution to their problem, right? And the reality of it is that they have probably already tried to solve that problem with somebody else, and they haven't been able to solve that. So it's fallen short for some reason. And really, if you look at that, well, that's exactly why skepticism is so rampant, because people don't want to make the wrong decision. And the most compelling way to prove to your prospects that you can help them, right, is by actually helping them before you ever ask for anything in return. That is the only way to overcome this skepticism. And I'll be teaching you step by step this process of exactly how to do that in this program, right? And giving you the system to deploy in your market, word for word, plug and play, with everything that you need. And it's really the process of taking your prospects from Tinder to Netflix and chill. Taking someone completely cold, completely unaware that they have a problem, and then, educating them all the way down to that they're ready to make a buying decision, right? And that is really that process of taking someone that's on Tinder that's looking for some fast, hot action, to taking them all the way down to we're ready to chill out, start a relationship with you. So I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be giving you the system of exactly how to do that later on in the program. So really the resources though for this module is you need to be looking at your Halo strategy. This is something that you will be referring to, right? You need to look at it. You need to read it. It needs to be something that is mentally burnt into your brain, so your dream buyer, their avatar, becomes somebody that you know intimately. like a friend or a family member or a spouse. You know them that well, right? That's the things that you want to be referring to. And the action items for this module is first to go through the Halo Strategy worksheet and really identify the number one hair on fire problem, right? Like, look for that one thing that just keeps on coming up from your research. And then basically from reading that Halo Strategy worksheet is how you're going to be able to do that, and just obsessing over it and really thinking about it, putting yourself in the shoes of that dream buyer and really finding out what that number one hair on fire problem or question is that they've got, that you could offer them an immediate solution to that hair on fire problem or question in your high value content offer. You want to study your dream buyer avatar worksheet and really figure out what's important to them, right? You know these people intimately, you know their age, you know how much money they earn, you know their interests, you know where they live, you know what a typical day looks like for them, and it's something that you really need to study in order to start thinking about, you know, your high value content offer. And then you want to identify any competitors in your market that is using some form of high value content offer, right? And you want to have a look and see, like, are they all just leading with a really threatening get a quote, speak with our team, which, look, 99% of them will be. But if there are some people that have half a brain and they are running, you know, a high value content offer, have a look at that. Put that in your swipe file, download it, read the emails that they send you, get some value out of it, see what's going on and how they're presenting it, and try to look for those clues and see if this is actually successful. If this is, you'll know from your research, right, by looking at your Halo Strategy worksheet, if their high value content offer is addressing what the number one hair on fire problem is. So that brings us to the end of this module. Go ahead, do this stuff now, and I will see you in the next video.